Friday nights used to mean something. Back when we were still us, it was our ritual. We'd pick a spot somewhere downtown. Not too trendy, not too dead, grab drinks and just talk. About everything, about nothing. It was the kind of tradition that made you believe things were solid. That you were building something steady and real. But lately it had all felt staged. Like we were actors reciting lines from a marriage we'd already left behind. Pretending to still mean them. This night was no different. We were at a pub on 7th Street. Dark wood booths, warm lighting. A little too much noise but not enough to drown out awkward silences. She sat across from me in a maroon turtleneck and jeans. Hair up in a loose bun that made her look younger than she felt lately. I remember thinking, for a moment, that she looked beautiful. And then hating myself for how rare that thought had become. We were halfway through our second round when her phone lit up. It was sitting next to her glass, screen angled toward me. She reached for it instinctively, mid-laugh, and that's when I saw it. A message from Kelvin, work. Attached was a photo preview. Just a glimpse, a flash of it before she tapped the screen, but enough. Enough for my brain to hold onto it like a freeze frame. She was wearing a forest green dress I'd never seen before, sleeveless, with a cut that clung tighter than anything in her closet. She was leaning into a man I'd never met. I assumed it was Kelvin. His hand was resting lightly on her back, not quite possessive, but not exactly professional either. She didn't react. No sudden flinch, no awkward shuffle to hide the screen. Just a smooth motion. Unlock, tap, scroll. Like nothing had happened. I tried to keep my voice even. That looked different. She blinked up at me. What did? That picture. From Kelvin. I motioned with my chin toward her phone. That wasn't from the office. She didn't miss a beat. Oh, that, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. We were doing presentation prep. It's for the annual pitch next week. The team's going with a more visual style this year, and Kelvin thought we should look the part. It was dumb. I just stared at her. My beer suddenly tasted flat. She must have seen something shift in my face, because she leaned back and crossed her arms. You're doing it again. Doing what? This, she said, her tone sharpening. Reading into everything. Looking for signs that don't exist. You know how tiring that gets, right? I didn't respond. She sighed. You always overreact. Always assume the worst. It's like, I can't even breathe without being questioned. It's exhausting. That word. Suffocating. It landed harder than I expected. I looked down at the condensation ring under my glass. I could hear someone at the bar laugh too loud. My stomach was twisting, but I couldn't tell if it was from the beer or the sudden clarity that something was seriously wrong. I'm just asking, I said quietly. That's all. Yeah, and I'm telling you it's work. I don't need to explain every little thing to you. We're adults. If this is how it's going to be, I don't know how long I can do this. I froze. Not because of what she said, but how she said it, calm, like she was negotiating a lease, not threatening the foundation of our marriage. She turned her eyes back to the drink in her hand and stirred it with her straw. That used to be a nervous habit of hers, back in the early days. I used to find it cute. Now it just felt like a distraction. Is this about last weekend too? I asked. When you said you had that late client call, but you didn't pick up when I checked in. She didn't even look up. I told you, my battery died. You're still on that? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with us. Another sigh, sharper this time. She finally met my eyes. What's going on is that you don't trust me. That's what's going on. And I can't keep living under a microscope. It's like, everything I do, every time I pick up my phone, you assume it's something shady. I wanted to argue, wanted to push back, tell her it wasn't like that I wasn't paranoid, that she was different now, colder, more guarded, and that I wasn't imagining it. But I didn't, because deep down I knew. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew the way she spoke now was different, careful, as if she were always one step ahead. Her explanations had a polish to them lately, like they'd been practiced in the mirror before being delivered. And that photo, that single careless notification, felt like a crack in the shell she'd been hiding behind. She checked her watch. "We should get going soon. I've got a call in the morning." "Sure," I said. "Whatever you need." She finished her drink, slid the glass to the edge of the table, and stood without waiting for me. Her phone was in her hand again before we'd even left the booth, thumb scrolling like she was trying to delete the entire night from memory. We walked to the car in silence. She drove. I stared out the window. The city lights blurred past us. Neon signs, half-lit gas stations, the same storefronts we used to comment on during late-night drives. Now they just passed without meaning. When we got home, she went straight upstairs. I sat on the couch for a while, coat still on, shoes still laced. Just sat there, listening to the faint creak of the stairs above me. I could hear the muffled sound of her voice from the bedroom, probably on the phone. Probably to someone she called. "Kelvin, work." It's wild how fast things can unravel. 1 minute you're sharing onion rings across a booth, laughing about some memory you've told a dozen times. And the next, you're replaying a blurry photo that flipped your entire world on its head. She didn't delete it in time, and that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't hiding it. She just didn't think I'd see it, or that I'd care enough to notice. But I did. And in that moment, something inside me changed. I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. Stopped trying to convince myself that I was overreacting. Because maybe, just maybe, I hadn't been paranoid after all. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I laid in bed next to her, or next to the shape of her, curled away from me, phone screen occasionally lighting up the room like a warning flare. I kept my eyes closed, trying to force rest, but every time I drifted near the edge of sleep, that image popped into my head. That photo. The green dress, her hand on his chest, the closeness, the lie. I started wondering, how many other things had I ignored? It's funny how you can live with someone for years and still miss the quiet ways they change. The little shifts that seem harmless at first. You write them off as mood swings, bad weeks, or stress. You chalk it up to work, or weather, or hormones. Anything but the truth. Now, though, I started seeing it all differently. The first thing I thought about were the business trips. She used to hate traveling, especially to Wisconsin. Always said it was boring, too cold, nothing to see. But in the past 6 months, she'd gone up there 4 times. Supposedly for client consultations. Same client, different cities. Every time, she'd pack light, take just 1 carry-on, and be back by Sunday evening. I never really asked questions. I wanted to be the supportive husband. I told myself that trust meant not interrogating your partner over every little detail. But now I remembered. One trip in late October where her hotel check-in email said Green Bay, but the return flight stub I found later was from Chicago. I'd asked her about it back then. She'd said the client moved her last minute. "Nothing major," she told me. "I forgot to mention it. Sorry." I'd let it go. Then there was the spa receipt. It showed up crumpled at the bottom of her purse. I'd been looking for a pen and found it tucked under an old pack of gum. A 1-hour deep tissue massage, billed to Marissa D. At a place we'd never been to. When I asked, she said it belonged to her friend Marissa, that she'd picked it up by accident when they met up after work. I laughed it off at the time, joked that I should get a massage too. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek. But later that night, she burned the receipt in the kitchen sink. Then there were the passwords. She changed all of them. Not just her phone passcode, which she claimed was a security thing for work, but her laptop login, her Google account, even the Netflix profile we shared. One night, I went to queue up our usual show and saw that her watch history was blank. When I brought it up, she shrugged and said, "I just wanted a fresh start. Too many suggestions were cluttering my feed." That felt off, but I let it go. The biggest thing, though, the one that sat the heaviest, was the new perfume. She used to hate perfume, said it gave her headaches. We used to laugh about it whenever we walked past the cologne section in department stores. She'd pull her scarf over her nose like a cartoon villain and pretend to gag. But a few weeks ago, she started wearing this subtle, smoky scent. Not every day, just on nights she claimed she had client dinners or late meetings. the kind of smell that lingered in the sheets even after she showered. It clung to her jacket, her scarf, her skin. I asked her about it once. She smiled and said, "Just wanted to try something new. Felt like being a little bolder." That's the word she used. Bolder. There was bold, and then there was secretive. And now everything pointed to the latter. I spent most of Saturday replaying old memories, looking for more cracks. Every late return home. Every vague text. Every time she put her phone face down during dinner. It all played in my mind like a crime drama reel. I remembered a dinner we had just after New Year's. We were supposed to celebrate a promotion she'd gotten, but she seemed distracted the whole night, checked her phone every 5 minutes, smiled at a message she didn't share. When I asked what was so funny, she waved it off. It's just work drama. Then there was that night in November when I woke up around 2 a.m. to find her missing from bed. I found her downstairs in the kitchen, standing in the dark with her phone pressed to her ear. When she saw me, she ended the call immediately and said she couldn't sleep. Back then, I believed her. Now, I wasn't so sure. The thing is, when you live with suspicion, it eats you slowly. You stop trusting your own eyes, your own memory. You second-guess yourself constantly. Maybe I'm just overthinking. Maybe she really is just tired. Maybe I'm the problem. But that photo, that one careless image from Kelvin, the one she didn't delete fast enough, made everything else click. She wasn't changing for herself. She was changing for something or someone else. And I had spent months talking myself into silence, trying not to rock a boat that had already sprung a leak. On Sunday, I tested something. She had a routine Sunday morning yoga with her friend Tasha, followed by coffee and catching up. She always left around 9 a.m. and came back by noon. This time, I asked casually if I could tag along. Said I hadn't seen Tasha in forever and it'd be nice to say hi. Her reaction? Instant tension. She laughed, too loudly. "You hate yoga." "True," I said. "But I like coffee." She paused. Then, with this tight little smile, said, "It's kind of our thing. I don't want her to feel third-wheeled." I nodded slowly. "Got it." She left 20 minutes later, wearing a different top than she usually wore to yoga, tighter, newer. Full face of makeup. No mat in the car. I checked her calendar. There was nothing about yoga that day. Instead, there was a vague entry blocked off as meeting 9:30 to 12:15. No other details. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shared calendar we barely used anymore. Back when things were good, we used to color-code it. Red for her events, blue for mine, green for shared plans. Lately, though, she'd switched to using a private calendar, something her phone synced to, but I couldn't see unless I had direct access. So I looked at the backup. She didn't know I still had admin rights to our old shared Google account. Something we made in our second year of marriage, when we were coordinating a trip out west. She stopped using it a year ago, but sometimes apps forget to log you out. There it was. An appointment labeled Lakeside Brewery. Attendees, Kelvin Work, marked as confirmed. The timestamp, 11 a.m. Today. I stared at it for a long time. Something shifted in me, like the final puzzle piece falling into place, clicking so cleanly it hurt. I realized that I didn't need to confront her today. I didn't need a fight. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I started planning. I'd go. Quietly. No drama. No confrontation, not yet. Just a quiet check-in. Just to confirm what I already knew deep down but had been too afraid to face. Because the truth was no longer hiding. It was just waiting. And I was done ignoring it. I didn't follow her that Sunday. I wasn't ready yet. I told myself I needed a little more time, not just to be sure, but to feel something solid under my feet before I took the next step. Catching someone in a lie is one thing. Watching the lie walk around, breathing, smiling, touching someone else's hand, that's something else entirely. You only get to witness that once. And I didn't want to mess it up. So I waited. The opportunity came 5 days later. Friday morning. We were both in the kitchen, her drinking her matcha, me sipping black coffee, pretending not to watch her too closely. She was texting under the table like she thought she could hide it even now. Every few seconds, her lips would twitch in that barely there smile, like the kind you get when a joke isn't funny, but the sender matters. I asked, "Got plans this weekend?" She looked up, surprised, maybe, or maybe just caught. "Yeah, actually," she said. "Coworker's birthday." "Oh yeah? Who?" She paused for just a second. "Chelsea." I waited. She kept stirring her drink. "She invited a few of us girls out to that lakeside brewery. You know, the one you hate, with the music that's too loud?" I nodded slowly. "Nice. You want to come?" she asked, almost as a reflex. "Wouldn't want to ruin your girl's night," I said. That made her smile. Genuine. Maybe the most real one I'd seen in weeks. "Exactly," she said, picking up her bag. "I'll probably be home late." "Cool," I said, sipping my coffee. "Be safe." She left like she always did, keys jangling, heels clicking down the hall, car engine starting right on cue. But my hands were already moving. I opened my laptop and checked the calendar, the one she didn't know I still had access to. There it was. Meeting, 6:30 p.m. Lakeside Brewery. With Kelvin, work. Not Chelsea. Not girls' night. Not even close. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My chest felt tight. Not with shock, but with clarity. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. That afternoon, I picked up a rental. Something low profile. Dark gray sedan. Nothing that would stand out. Just enough to blend into the evening without being noticed. I parked a block away from the brewery, rolled the windows halfway down, and waited. It was almost funny how nervous I felt, like I was the one doing something wrong, like I was the liar in this story. But mostly I felt numb, the kind of numb that comes after weeks of spinning theories and dissecting memories. I wasn't here to guess anymore. I was here to know. By 6 p.m., people were already arriving. Groups of friends, couples, coworkers laughing too loudly. The usual Friday night energy. I sat still, watching the entrance like it owed me something. At 6:41, she arrived. I saw her before I registered it was her. She looked different in ways that made too much sense. That green dress from the photo, the one I'd never seen before, with the subtle slit up the side and the way it hugged her like it had been tailored for this exact moment. Her makeup was soft but meticulous. New lipstick, slightly curled hair. The kind of effort you don't make for Chelsea from accounting. She stood outside for a moment, checking her phone. Then she smiled. Kelvin pulled up in a black SUV and parked illegally for a few seconds, just long enough for her to step off the curb and climb into the passenger side like she'd done it 100 times. She didn't look around. She didn't hesitate. He leaned over and kissed her cheek as she buckled her seatbelt. I felt my throat tighten. Not with rage, but with this awful hollow ache, a realization that this wasn't a one-time slip. This wasn't new. This was familiar to them. They pulled away from the curb and I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I had seen everything I came to see. I pulled out my phone and snapped one clean photo. Zoomed in just enough to capture her smile and the side of his face. The interior lights of his car casting them in that soft, romantic glow you'd expect from a movie. Her hand was resting on his knee. His fingers were already on the wheel, like they were racing away from the guilt. I stared at that photo for a long time. I could have chased them, could have followed them into whatever hotel or apartment or second life they'd carved out for themselves. I could have waited outside, watched her leave, confronted her right there on the sidewalk like some tragic husband from a soap opera. But I didn't, because something in me had clicked. Not the kind of click that breaks you, but the kind that hardens you, sharpens you. I drove home. No music, no thoughts. Just that photo burned into my brain and the silence of knowing that the truth no longer needed proof. When I got back to the house, it felt colder. I walked through the hallway like a guest. Her coat still hung by the door. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the entryway. Everything looked normal, lived in, comfortable, like nothing had changed except, of course, everything had. I went upstairs and opened our old filing cabinet. Buried behind tax folders and lease agreements was a sheet of paper. Something we made when we were planning to travel more, back when we still believed in each other. It was a backup protocol for digital access. Passwords, shared cloud logins, recovery keys. I'd forgotten we even wrote it down. She hadn't. That night, I logged into her cloud storage using the credentials she never changed. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe a few photos, message threads, calendar events. But what I found was a digital graveyard of secrets, all neatly organized, all tagged by date. Messages from Kelvin going back nearly 8 months. Some playful, some graphic, most of them unmistakably int asterisk mate. Talk about hotel rooms, inside jokes, missing your skin, and next time let's skip the brewery. Then came the receipts. Hotels booked under her maiden name. Car rentals in cities she'd never told me she visited. Screensh asterisk TS of calendar invites and Google Map pins. Voice notes he sent her. One of them whispering goodnight, calling her his escape. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just a deep, bone-level exhaustion. I downloaded everything, compiled it all into a private folder. Labeled it Truth. I didn't plan to confront her with it. Not yet. This wasn't about a fight. It was about clarity. About making sure I never again let someone talk me out of what I saw with my own eyes. I printed the photo I took, the one of them in the car, and slid it into a blank envelope. Then I wrote a note on a yellow post-it. Just 7 words. This is what breathing looks like, right? I stuck it to the bathroom mirror. That's where I left it all. Because sometime after midnight, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. Documents, laptop, clothes for a few days. No goodbye, no dramatic exit. I took my phone, deleted my social apps, turned off Find My iPhone, and walked out the door. The last thing I did before leaving was turn on the doorbell camera, just to see what she'd do when she came back. I expected rage when I opened her cloud storage. I expected panic, maybe disbelief. What I didn't expect was how organized everything was. The folders were labeled by month, some by city, a few by initials. Kelvin had his own folder, thick, dated, detailed, but he wasn't alone. There were receipts from hotels I'd never heard of. Flights she claimed were canceled. Weekends she said she'd spent with friends. Every file felt deliberate, intentional. Not the sloppy trail of a woman afraid of being caught, but the system of someone confident she never would be. She wasn't hiding. She was managing. I sat on the edge of a motel bed, laptop balanced on my knees, scrolling through her second life like it was a corporate archive. Messages saved. Photos duplicated. Even backups of backups. Some documents were tagged with notes, reminders to delete, or worse, reminders not to. One folder caught my attention. It wasn't named after a person or a place, just a word. Agreements. Inside were videos. Short clips at first. Poor lighting. Hotel rooms. Voices low. Then longer ones. Clearer. Framed intentionally like someone had thought about angles. About leverage. About permanence. There were men I recognized, one of them her boss, and others I didn't. Some looked uncomfortable. Others cocky. A few clearly unaware they were being recorded. My stomach turned. This wasn't cheating. This was insurance. She wasn't reckless. She was prepared. She'd built a vault of secrets and wrapped it in plausible deniability. Kelvin wasn't special. He was convenient. Just another asset in a structure I'd never been meant to see. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall for a long time. 25 years. That's how long we'd been married. I thought about the woman I'd met in my 20s. The one who laughed too loud and cried during commercials. The one who used to say honesty was the only thing that mattered. I wondered when she learned to document betrayal instead of fearing it. At some point, my phone buzzed. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts stacking up like wreckage. Where are you? Why won't you answer? Please come home. We need to talk. I didn't listen. Didn't respond. Instead, I copied everything. Every file. Every message. Every video. I stored it in 3 separate drives and encrypted them. I wasn't planning revenge. But I wasn't stupid either. Knowledge changes power. Silence doesn't erase danger. Just before sunrise, I packed up and left the motel. I drove aimlessly for hours. letting the daylight catch up with what I'd learned. Somewhere outside the city, I pulled over and cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just quietly, like someone letting go of a version of their life they could no longer carry. By the time I stopped, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to negotiate. I wasn't going to ask for explanations from someone who'd been rehearsing lies longer than I'd been trusting them. I went back once. Just once. Long enough to leave a single printed photo on the hallway mirror. The one of her in Kelvin's car. Under it, I placed a folded note. No anger. No accusations. Just the truth. Then I walked out again, this time without hesitation. Because she didn't think I'd act. She thought I'd argue. Doubt myself. Stay. She was wrong. I watched the footage from my phone. The doorbell camera app, still linked to our home Wi-Fi, buzzed a little after 7 a.m. There she was, standing on the porch. Same coat from the night before. Hair pulled back in a messy bun, like she'd rushed out of bed. Her eyes were puffy. No makeup. She looked real for once. The camera caught everything. Her hand trembling as she reached for the doorknob. The way she hesitated before pressing the bell. How she glanced around, not for danger, but maybe hoping no one would see her like that. The ring echoed through an empty house. I was hundreds of miles away by then, sitting in a diner somewhere off Highway 29, drinking burnt coffee and watching her fall apart in 1080p. She knocked once, then again harder. I watched her lips move, mouthing my name like I might somehow be on the other side of that door. Then she stepped back, clutching her phone, clearly debating whether to call me again. My voicemail was probably already full. The screen flashed once as she called, then again. The third time, she just held the phone to her chest and stared at the door like it had betrayed her. She didn't realize I had walked through that same door 12 hours earlier and left the truth hanging on the wall. A single photo and a note that ended us. She leaned forward, peering through the window like she expected to see me sitting on the couch, angry but reachable. I imagined her picturing the conversation. Her pleading, me breaking. The apology followed by a tearful hug and some desperate version of, "We can fix this." But I wasn't there, and I wasn't breaking. She sat on the porch steps eventually, arms around her knees like a teenager who missed curfew. Then, after about 15 minutes, she stood up again. Slower this time, and pressed the bell one last time. When nothing happened, she finally turned and walked away. The camera followed her until she was just a silhouette at the edge of the street. She didn't know it then, but I'd already signed the lease on a furnished one-bedroom apartment in a town where no one knew my name. I had moved half my savings into a separate account, changed the email tied to my banking, and set up a P.O. box for anything that needed forwarding. It wasn't about hiding. It was about untethering. That was the word I kept thinking. Untethered. For 25 years, I had been tied to a version of life I believed in. A shared routine. A shared mortgage. A shared future. But those things don't hold value when one person cashes out in secret. Now I was free in the loneliest, cleanest way possible. The first few days I didn't speak to anyone. I turned off notifications. Slept too much. Ate too little. Walked aimlessly through unfamiliar neighborhoods. Sometimes, I caught myself reaching for my phone to text her. Like muscle memory hadn't caught up with my reality. But then I'd remember the footage. The photo. The folder labeled agreements. And I'd stop. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was something quieter. More permanent. Clarity. You don't recover from betrayal. You replace what it broke. Not all at once, but piece by piece until the mirror reflects someone new. Someone who doesn't answer when ghosts knock. 3 days after I disappeared, her sister called. Not to scold. Not to ask where I was. But to say she understood. "She came by," her sister said. Tried to explain. I didn't want to hear it. I told her I warned you once. She told me to mind my business. Now I guess she's finally out of stories. I didn't reply. I just listened. "I'm sorry," her sister added. "For everything. If you ever need anything." She let the sentence trail off, not wanting to press. I appreciated that. I thanked her and hung up. I mailed her a package the next day, not to Joanna, but to her sister. Inside was a USB drive, labeled simply, "Your sister's secrets." No message, no threat, just a handoff, because I didn't need it anymore. I kept a copy for myself, of course. Safety comes first, but I didn't want to carry it. That wasn't my weight to bear. That file was hers. She built it. She hid it. She could deal with the consequences. Let her sister decide what to do with it. Maybe she'd bury it. Maybe she'd confront her. Maybe she'd pretend it never arrived. Didn't matter. I wasn't going back. Meanwhile, Joanna kept calling. Blocked numbers. Unknown senders. Even a couple emails from old accounts we hadn't used in years. She wrote like we were mid-conversation. Like the last few days were just a bad dream we could wake from together. "I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out. I know I messed up, but we can fix it. Don't throw this away." I didn't respond, because I hadn't thrown anything away. I had walked away. Calmly, quietly, with everything I needed. She didn't understand the difference. She still thought this was a standoff. A dramatic pause in the script where the music swells and the hero comes back for one last conversation. But this wasn't a movie. This was real. And in the real world, when someone builds their life on manipulation, they don't get to cry their way back into your trust. Tears aren't time machines. They don't undo receipts. They don't erase hotel bookings under maiden names. They don't delete folders labeled useful. They just soak the wreckage. I kept watching the doorbell camera for a while. Not out of curiosity, but because I wanted to see how long it would take for her to stop showing up. She came back twice more. Once in the afternoon, calmer, dressed for work, probably hoping I'd be home early. Then again late at night, when she thought I might be drunk enough to answer. But eventually the visits stopped. The voicemail transcriptions slowed. The emails dried up. I imagined her walking through our house, opening drawers, finding the spaces where my things used to be. Noticed how clean it was. Noticed how final it felt. Wondered if she looked at her own reflection and saw what I'd seen. Not a woman in love, but a woman who gambled and lost. She must have figured out I wasn't bluffing. I had left. Not for attention. Not for a reaction. Just to live. Because that's what betrayal teaches you, if you let it. That you can survive endings. That not all silence is empty. That walking away isn't giving up. It's giving yourself back. I moved into my new apartment on a Wednesday. The building was quiet. 3rd floor. Balcony facing a park I didn't know the name of yet. I bought a cheap rug, a used couch, and a coffee maker that reminded me of the one we had when we were first married. Back when things were simpler, before ambition and deception got tangled up. I didn't put anything on the walls. Not yet. But I opened the windows, let the breeze in, sat on the floor and listened to the creaks of the place settling around me, like a body getting used to new skin. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No secrets, no second phone under the bed, no folders labeled agreement, just space and time, and the quiet kind of peace that comes when you stop explaining yourself to someone who already decided you were wrong. That night, I fell asleep without checking the doorbell camera, because I didn't care if she came back anymore. The story had already ended. Weeks later, I almost forgot about the drive. It sat untouched in a drawer, like a bad memory I'd boxed up. But curiosity crept in one night, and I opened the files again. That's when I noticed a hidden folder I hadn't seen before. Buried deep, encrypted, but not enough to stop me. Inside were more videos. Not just Kelvin. Not just her boss. 2 men I didn't recognize. Each clip was labeled, sorted, and, disturbingly, tagged with notes, useful, backup, agreement. It wasn't infidelity. It was blackmail. She'd been collecting dirt like currency. A private vault of leverage she'd never meant for anyone to see. Watching them, I didn't feel betrayed anymore. I felt cold. This was never about love. It was about control, power, image. And now, I had it. All of it. The one thing she never wanted anyone to hold but her. I didn't go public. I didn't ruin her. I simply disappeared. Quietly. Intentionally. I gave 1 copy of the evidence to her sister, The one person who'd tried to warn me years ago. She deserved to know. Then I changed my number, moved states, started fresh. No one knew my past. No one whispered behind my back. A month later, I met someone in a bookstore. Someone kind, curious, who listened without trying to fix me. When I told her the truth, she didn't flinch. She smiled and said, "You didn't leave. You chose yourself." That stuck with me, because it was true. For the first time in decades, I wasn't surviving. I was living. And Joanna? She stayed behind in the shadows of her lies, exactly where she belonged. No closure, no answers, just silence. And for me, that was enough.